First of all, I'm really happy to be here because I love Montreal. It's like Paris, but you bathe.
When Joan Rivers went in for routine throat surgery in 2014, she never woke up. The official story seemed simple. But 11 years later, the pieces finally came together. Melissa's lawsuit revealed doctors took selfies with her unconscious mother. They performed procedures Joan never agreed to. They didn't even record her weight. But here's what nobody talks about. Joan had attempted suicide twice before, and Melissa kept that secret for years. She also revealed the plastic surgery number was a lie. Today, we're uncovering what Melissa finally admitted. Joan Alexandra Malinsky was born on June 8, 1933, right in the heart of Brooklyn's Crown Heights, on New York Avenue. Her father, Dr. Meyer Malinsky, was a physician with a knack for impersonations, and her mother, Beatrice, a librarian with a fear of poverty that never left her. Beatrice's constant pressure for financial success created a home full of ambition, but also anxiety. Joan grew up in a neighborhood where kids rode bikes safely, and neighbors knew each other by name. But inside her home, expectations were tight, and fear of failure was always just around the corner. At just 8 years old, Joan invented an alter ego she named J. Sandra Meredith. She stood in front of her bedroom mirror and imagined herself as glamorous, polished, and elegant, everything her mother dreamed she would become. These childhood performances were more than play. They were rehearsals for survival. Joan used them to escape her insecurities and poverty-shadowed household, planting early seeds of performance as transformation. Her early education at the Ethical Culture School and later Adelphi Academy revealed her love for theater. She was performing in school productions before she turned 17, already vice president of the Dramatic Club by 1949. Yet, despite all this passion and talent, Joan wrestled with deep insecurity. She struggled with her weight, feeling constantly out of place. And these body issues stayed with her for life. They shaped her humor, became part of her material, and turned her pain into punchlines. When her family moved to Larchmont, a more affluent and non-Jewish suburb, Joan faced relentless bullying. Her accent, her looks, and her Jewish identity made her a target. The exclusion she felt cut deep, and she learned fast that humor could be her shield. She fought back with words, beat others to the punch with wit, and began building the sharp, fearless, comedic voice that would define her. In 1951, Joan graduated from Adelphi Academy and went on to Connecticut College for Women before transferring to Barnard College. She graduated in 1954 with a degree in English literature. Although she often claimed honors like Phi Beta Kappa and Summa Cum Laude, those accolades weren't real, just part of the persona building she would perfect over the years. After college, she took whatever jobs she could find: tour guide at Rockefeller Center, fashion consultant at Bond clothing stores, proofreader at an ad agency. None were glamorous. Each paid just enough to scrape by. At Bond's, she met James Sanger. He seemed like the kind of man her parents would approve of. They married in 1955, but the marriage collapsed within 6 months when Joan discovered he didn't want children. The annulment devastated her parents, but it pushed Joan further toward the stage. She realized she wanted more than security. She wanted to perform. In 1959, she took the name Joan Rivers and started performing in Greenwich Village clubs. Her routines didn't land. Crowds heckled. Agents dismissed her. Irvin Arthur told her she was too old, too seen, and that if she were going to make it, she would have by now. But she kept showing up, often eating cheap meals with fellow unknowns like Woody Allen and George Carlin. She even acted alongside a young Barbra Streisand in a tiny off-Broadway play that lasted only 6 weeks. In 1961, she got an audition with Second City in Chicago. She wasn't ready. When they asked her to improvise, she panicked and threw an ashtray during the audition. But instead of rejection, she got a call the next day. They hired her. She cried with relief. At Second City, she created characters like Rita, channeling the sharp humor that would soon become her signature. She said later, she was born as a comedian on that stage. The real break came on February 17, 1965. After years of being rejected, Joan finally made it onto The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson. She had failed during the Jack Paar era and carried that shame for years. But that night, she was ready. Carson laughed hard. When he told her, "You're gonna be a star," everything changed. Bookings poured in. Her life shifted overnight. Around the same time, she took a gig writing for Topo Gigio, the mouse puppet on The Ed Sullivan Show. It paid $500 per sketch, and Joan jumped at it. She said she'd write for Hitler if it paid that much. It wasn't glamorous, but it opened doors. She moved from writing for puppets to comedians like Phyllis Diller and Bob Newhart. Her 1966 appearance on The Ed Sullivan Show happened by accident. Sullivan meant to say Johnny Rivers and blurted Joan Rivers instead. She was booked to fix the mistake. During this time, she started joking about plastic surgery, delivering lines like wanting fat sucked out and personality pumped in. NBC censors got nervous, but Carson loved it. At just 32, Joan had possibly already undergone her first eye lift. She launched her own daytime talk show in 1968, That Show with Joan Rivers. Each episode had a theme. Johnny Carson appeared on the first one, showing his support. Despite celebrity guests like Jerry Lewis and Don Rickles, the show didn't last beyond 1970. It was one of Joan's first major setbacks, but not her last. That same year, she released a comedy album titled Presents Mr. Phyllis and Other Funny Stories. Tracks like The Fat Girl exposed her deepest insecurities, turning personal pain into raw comedy. The album didn't top charts, but it established her voice, bold, self-deprecating, and unfiltered. In 1968, Joan Rivers stepped into a world completely different from her comedy stage, the world of dramatic cinema. She took a role in The Swimmer, alongside Burt Lancaster. Most people wrongly think it happened in 1972, but it was actually 4 years earlier. The filming experience, though, was anything but glamorous. Lancaster kept redirecting her lines, and the director, Frank Perry, had a totally different idea of her character. One wanted her to be sweet and hurt. The other wanted her to be cold and cruel. Joan went back and forth so many times between their versions that by the end, nothing made sense. She was stuck between egos, and that one small scene took far longer to shoot than expected. It was an early taste of how brutal film sets could be for women trying to do something different. Just a year later, she took a different kind of risk, one with her voice. In 1969, Joan released the next-to-last Joan Rivers album. It wasn't 1973, as many sources say. This album wasn't just comedy, it was a revolution in vinyl. She talked about things women weren't even allowed to mention: abortion, homosexuality, pain disguised as laughter. She joked about women having 14 appendectomies because she couldn't say the word abortion. That was how tight the censorship was. She made jokes about her gay hairdresser, Mr. Phyllis, long before America was ready to laugh about that. She had already released Mr. Phyllis and Other Funny Stories in 1965, but this 1969 album hit like a punch. Nobody had heard a woman say these things into a microphone before. These albums quietly spread like fire underground. They didn't top charts, but they made her unforgettable. Then came the lights of Las Vegas. Many think she started there in 1975, but she had already co-headlined with John Davidson at the Riviera in 1969. Her Caesar's Palace debut? 1972, as Paul Anka's opening act. And from there, it never stopped. The Sahara, Frontier, MGM Grand, Desert Inn, all booked her. And Vegas wasn't ready for her mouth. She joked about abortions, plastic surgery, and cheating husbands. A man can sleep around, no questions asked. But if a woman makes 19 or 20 mistakes, she's a tramp. One of her boldest lines? "My vagina is like Newark. Men know it's there, but they don't want to visit." By 1984, she was making $50,000 per show with a $12 million deal over 3 years. She wasn't just performing, She was rewriting the rules for what women could say in public and where they could say it. In 1978, she tried something even bigger. Joan wrote and directed Rabbit Test, starring Billy Crystal as the world's first pregnant man. Edgar Rosenberg, her husband, produced it. On paper, it sounded like comedy gold. The movie made $12 million on a $997,000 budget, so it didn't flop financially. But critics hated it. There were so many cameos: Paul Lynde, Norman Fell, Charlotte Rae, even her own daughter Melissa. But the jokes didn't land. Billy Barty appeared in blackface. Reviewers called it vulgar. Roger Ebert didn't hold back. IMDb gave it a 3.110. The Metascore was just 20. That one film was enough. She never directed again. Her husband wasn't just her producer, he was her foundation. Joan married Edgar Rosenberg on July 15, 1965. They had met just 5 days earlier. She was rewriting a screenplay in Jamaica. He hired her, and they got married in a flash. That same night, she did 2 comedy shows at the bitter end. In 1968, their daughter Melissa Warburg Rosenberg was born. Joan walked onto The Ed Sullivan Show 8 months pregnant, at a time when she couldn't even say the word pregnant on television. Edgar wasn't just a husband. He built her career like an architect. They called it the career, like it was a living thing. Joan even turned motherhood into material. She'd write comedy as bedtime stories and teach Melissa how to make punchlines out of life. Their partnership lasted 22 years until Edgar's suicide in 1987. Then came the Golden Desk, The Tonight Show. In August 1983, Joan Rivers became the permanent guest host for Johnny Carson. No woman had ever come close to that seat. Between then and 1986, she guest hosted 190 times. That number broke every record. For 2 full weeks, she hosted every single night. July 26, 1984, became a historic broadcast. It was the first TV episode in American history to be aired in MTS stereo. But only New York viewers with WNBC could hear it. She once called herself Johnny Carson's daughter. That's how deep the mentorship ran. Everyone thought she'd be the next in line. She nearly was. In 1983, Joan released what becomes a semi-legend most on Geffen Records. It reached number 22 on the Billboard 200. It got her a Grammy nomination for Best Comedy Album in 1984. But it also started a feud. Elizabeth Taylor became one of Joan's favorite targets. The weight jokes, the diet books, the constant commentary. Joan didn't hold back. Taylor clapped back in interviews, calling her a nasty woman. But Joan didn't stop. Her album also introduced the world to Heidi Abramowitz, her fictional character known for being promiscuous. It was comedy that pushed boundaries and burned bridges. In 1994, Joan finally chased her Broadway dream. She co-wrote and starred in Sally Marr and Her Escorts, a play about Lenny Bruce's mother. The play opened after 27 previews and ran for 50 performances. She got a Tony nomination for Best Actress. She was nominated for a Drama Desk Award too, but the run was short. Critics were mixed. Some thought she was using Bruce's tragedy for attention. The night reviewers came. Joan had taken prednisone and accidentally skipped entire scenes. That hurt the reviews. Still, she loved the play so much, she was buried with a copy of the script. If you've ever heard the phrase, "Who are you wearing?" on the red carpet, thank Joan. She changed everything about celebrity fashion. Before her, red carpets were about the movies. After her, it was all about the dresses. Some say her fashion coverage started in 1991 at the Golden Globes. Others know it began earlier. She turned fashion commentary into a billion-dollar entertainment industry. She called out designer knockoffs on live TV. She turned fashion police into must-watch television. She turned designers into celebrities and red carpet interviews into full-on events. And then there was her face. Joan was brutally honest about it. She said she'd had 739 cosmetic procedures, though Melissa said the real number was around 365. She had her first one, an eye lift, at 32 in 1965, right after her big break on Carson's show. Botox every 6 months. Facelifts, nose jobs, liposuction. She joked about a facelift gone wrong in 1983. "I looked like a Shar-Pei puppy." That joke became iconic. She talked about it so openly that she removed the shame. Joan turned surgery into comedy. She didn't just normalize it, she made it part of the culture. Joan Rivers made history on October 9, 1986, when she became the first woman to host a late-night network talk show. The premiere of The Late Show, starring Joan Rivers on the newly formed Fox network, was electric, with a lineup featuring Elton John, Cher, David Lee Roth, and Pee Wee Herman. It looked like a winning start, but within weeks, the excitement faded. Big-name celebrities avoided the show out of fear, because Johnny Carson, the king of late night, wasn't happy. Many feared that if they appeared on Rivers' show, Carson would blacklist them from The Tonight Show. That fear proved real. The ratings slipped fast. What worked in short bursts when she guest-hosted for Carson didn't carry the same weight every single night. Viewers turned away. By March 1987, the show was already considered a flop. Even the Associated Press called it out. Behind the scenes, Joan's husband, Edgar Rosenberg, who was also the executive producer, clashed with Fox chairman Barry Diller. The tension was no longer private. It spilled into the press. Everyone seemed to be fighting over what had gone wrong. When Rivers had accepted the job, she called Johnny Carson directly to share the news. He didn't say a word. He hung up the phone. And that was the last time they ever spoke. She had been his loyal guest host for 18 years, but Carson felt betrayed. He'd let other comedians like Bill Cosby, George Carlin, and David Brenner leave without a fuss. But this was different. "She's dead to me," he told Jay Leno. Carson erased her from his world. Her name, her photos, even her comedy albums were removed from the show's materials. Guests who appeared on her show were banned from his. Joan believed his reaction wasn't just about loyalty. She said he treated her like property, like she belonged to him, saying, "I think he really felt because I was a woman, that I just was his." She never returned to NBC's late-night lineup until Jimmy Fallon invited her back in February 2014, 49 years after her first appearance. She died 6 months later. By May 15, 1987, the show had aired about 150 episodes. That day, Joan Rivers taped her final one. Her guests included Howie Mandel, Chris Rock, and Paul Rubens, but she already knew it was over. Fox executives fired both her and her husband. Joan later described the way they were let go as humiliating. Edgar was blamed publicly. Diller pointed fingers. The network had poured millions into the venture. In the end, Fox lost $99 million on late-night programming. They had to pay out Joan's $10 million contract just to end it. They replaced her with Arsenio Hall, whose energy caught on with viewers. His guest hosting was so well received, he ended up with his own late-night show. 3 months after their firing, tragedy struck. On August 14, 1987, Edgar Rosenberg took his own life in a hotel room in Philadelphia. He overdosed on Valium and alcohol. Investigators found 3 tapes where he called himself a clogged wheel. He talked about his failing health, a previous heart attack that led to quadruple bypass surgery, and recent hospital stays that left him feeling like a burden. He said he couldn't even travel with Joan anymore. She was left behind, unemployed, widowed, and facing financial ruin. Most reports said she owed $6 million, but in truth, the number was closer to $37 million. She later explained, "It all fell apart fast. I'm not a businesswoman. My husband was a businessman," she said. A con man took her public, stole the funds, and even bought rights to her own name. For a while, she couldn't even legally sell jewelry or use her name on products. Her daughter Melissa blamed her for Edgar's death. The grief fractured them too. Still, Joan wasn't done. She turned all that pain into fuel. Her jokes became sharper. Her books grew bolder. Even before the fallout, she had released The Life and Hard Times of Heidi Abramovitz in 1984. It read like a fake biography, but was really a disguised burn book full of Hollywood secrets. She called out the hypocrisy of celebrities by wrapping it in a fictional character's life. She didn't hold back. Over time, she used her own downfall as comedy. Ageism, sexism, rejection. She made it all into punchlines. She spoke directly to women who felt invisible. She stayed on the road, rebuilding piece by piece, and she kept going for 27 more years. By 1989, she had climbed her way back onto TV with the Joan Rivers show. It premiered on September 5th, and this time it worked. She leaned into daytime. She made it edgier, looser, realer. By June 1990, she won a Daytime Emmy for Outstanding Talk Show Host. Her speech brought people to tears. 2 years ago, I couldn't get a job, she said. This is really for him? She meant Edgar. The show ran until 1993, with over 900 episodes. She never let it feel like a safe, quiet place. She hosted controversial topics, awkward guests, and shocking interviews. It was messy. And that was the magic. One moment you'd laugh, the next you'd gasp. Entertainment Weekly said it was the perfect platform for her wild, off-the-cuff style. During those years, she became known for joking about Elizabeth Taylor. Some say she made 850 jokes about her. Stuff like, she puts mayonnaise on aspirin, and when she pierced her ears, gravy ran out. But the truth was softer. Taylor didn't take it personally. Their mutual friend, Roddy McDowell, said Liz knew how to laugh at herself. They even made peace in public during a 1985 benefit event. What looked like a feud was more like performance art. That was the line Joan walked. Truth hiding inside the joke. In 1990, desperate for money, Joan took a gamble. She joined QVC. At the time, it was mostly for forgotten names, but she launched her jewelry line with a single product, a bee-pin inspired by one Edgar had given her. It sold out in minutes. That moment sparked a billion-dollar empire. She approved every item herself. By 2014, her QVC sales topped $1 billion. Her classics collection alone brought in $4.5 million each year. She registered her trademark in 1996 and launched over 6,000 products. What had started as a survival move became one of her greatest business wins. In 1994, she returned to Broadway, not just as a performer, but as a writer too. She co-wrote and starred in Sally Marr and Her Escorts, a one-woman show about the mother of Lenny Bruce. It ran for about 50 performances at the Helen Hayes Theater. The story echoed Joan's own journey, raising a child, losing a partner, and surviving the industry's rejection. She was nominated for a Tony Award. Years later, when she died, she was buried with the script. That's how much it meant to her. There was some confusion later about the Tony Awards. Joan didn't host them in 1993. Liza Minnelli did, but Joan remained close with Liza, who had performed on her show before. Joan's actual Broadway success came a year later. By the mid-1990s, she had stitched her life back together from every angle. Talk show, jewelry business, stage, and then she did something else no one saw coming. In 1995, something changed on the red carpet. It wasn't just about who was wearing what. It became about what Joan Rivers thought about it. She didn't just ask actresses who they were wearing. She told millions of viewers what she really thought. When Nicole Kidman wore that chartreuse Dior gown to the Oscars in 1997, Joan looked right into the camera, made a gagging sound, and said it was the ugliest dress she'd ever seen. It was brutal, but it was funny, and it made people watch. Celebrities stopped seeing the red carpet as a safe space. They started seeing it as a war zone. One wrong dress, and they'd be on Joan's list. By 1996, Live from the Red Carpet wasn't background noise, it was the show. Actresses hired stylists just to survive Joan Rivers, and she loved it. A few years later, Joan turned all that into a full-blown TV format. Fashion Police premiered in 2010, with Joan at the helm and a team of sharp-tongued co-hosts. It wasn't just about fashion anymore, it was entertainment. Segments like Bitch Stole My Look and Starlet or Streetwalker became viral hits. People tuned in religiously, sometimes just to hear Joan's next joke. She once compared a dress to a couch cushion and another to a broken umbrella. The show stretched to a full hour in 2012. Even after her death, the tribute episode in 2014 brought in 1.1 million viewers. That was E's best Friday in 2 years. Joan had turned fashion criticism into primetime spectacle. But fashion TV wasn't the only empire she built. She sold over $1 billion in products on QVC. She wasn't just endorsing items, she designed them. In 2013 alone, she sold 1.2 million units. And on a single day, November 19, 2012, she sold 88,000 lavish luxury sequin scarves. That day alone made QVC history. Her appearances were booked months in advance. She had dates lined up for September 12th and 26th in 2014, but she never made them. She died on September 4th. Yet, even after her passing, her brand survived. Few celebrity lines do. Hers still does. And it wasn't just luck. It was work. Years of work. When she joined The Celebrity Apprentice in 2009, many didn't expect her to go far. She was 75. But she outlasted everyone. She beat Khloe Kardashian, Dennis Rodman, and even poker pro Annie Duke. Annie raised more money in the final task, $465,725 versus Joan's $150,830, but Joan won anyway. Trump said she nailed the guest experience, the product placement, and the celebrity turnout. She earned $250,000 for her charity, and in total raised over $526,000 that season. The boardroom arguments between her and Annie were vicious. Joan called Annie a two-faced person. Annie called Joan a cancer. And America couldn't stop watching. Plastic surgery was never a secret for Joan. She didn't hide it. She owned it. She claimed she'd had 739 procedures. That number raised eyebrows, literally and figuratively. Doctors doubted it was physically possible. Even if she had 10 operations a year, it wouldn't add up. But Joan didn't care. She wrote about it in her 2012 book, I Hate Everyone, starting with me. She joked that surgery was like a gym membership. You keep going, even if nothing changes. She got Botox multiple times a year, and fillers when needed. Other celebrities denied it. Joan laughed about it. It became part of her identity. Reality TV came calling. Joan and Melissa. Joan Knows Best aired on WE-TV starting January 25, 2011. It ran for 4 seasons. The cameras followed Joan as she moved in with Melissa, bickered with her, and, most memorably, chased more surgery. In one episode, she begged 3 different Beverly Hills doctors for arm lifts. They all refused. One said, "For your age, you're perfect." Joan replied, "I'll find someone in a van." That episode aired January 24, 2012. Viewers laughed, but also gasped. At one point, the show hit 1.5 million viewers. Joan didn't just push boundaries, she erased them. She didn't spare politicians either. In 2013, on Letterman, she said Hillary Clinton needed a makeover and joked about her bangs saving money on Botox. Feminists were furious. Joan doubled down. On HuffPost Live, she said she'd fix Hillary's hair and still called Clinton one of the most amazing women in history. It was classic Rivers, compliment with one hand, roast with the other. The backlash didn't slow her down. It gave her more material. Then, in February 2015, 5 months after her death, Joan won a Grammy for Best Spoken Word Album. Diary of a Mad Diva was full of the usual Joan barbs, this time about death and aging. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. Melissa accepted the award, and people remembered that Joan had won her first Grammy back in 1984. 30 years apart, 2 Grammys, same sharp tongue. But Joan's legacy wasn't all glam and glitter. In 1987, she'd voiced a robot named Dot Matrix in Spaceballs, Mel Brooks's sci-fi parody. The character had a virgin alarm and Joan's signature sass. She kept referencing it years later, often tying it to her plastic surgeries. She called herself Cyborg Face and laughed at the comparison. Spaceballs became a cult classic, and even in 2025, with a sequel on the way, Dot Matrix won't be returning. Joan's voice can't be replaced. Twitter was another battlefield. She once joked about Pope Francis's white robes, saying he'd broken fashion rules by wearing white before Memorial Day. The Catholic world didn't laugh. When Adele won a Grammy in 2013, Joan mocked her weight on Letterman, even puffing her cheeks and spreading her arms. People booed. She didn't flinch. On HuffPost Live, she doubled down again. "She's fat," Joan said. Let's face it, it was cruel, but also textbook Joan. Go too far, then go further. In 2017, she was inducted into the Television Academy Hall of Fame, 3 years after her death. Melissa accepted the award, and people remembered that Joan was the first woman to host a late-night show in 1986. That alone had changed TV forever. Rolling Stone ranked her 6th on its list of the best stand-up comics of all time. Chris Hardwick called her an innovator. Chelsea Handler said she paved the way. Even Whoopi Goldberg nodded in respect. Her death, though, was tragic. She went in for a routine throat procedure at Yorkville Endoscopy in Manhattan on August 28, 2014. She never woke up. It turned out that the doctors had performed a procedure she hadn't consented to. One of them allegedly took selfies with her unconscious body. The clinic didn't record her weight. They ignored warnings. By the time someone called 911, it was too late. Joan was 81. Melissa filed a lawsuit and reached a settlement in 2016. It wasn't about money. It was about truth. In 2015, Melissa published The Book of Joan. It was raw. It revealed that Joan had attempted suicide twice. Once in the 1950s, after a breakup. Once in 1987, after her husband Edgar's suicide, when she lost her job, her contracts, and was blacklisted. She sat with a gun in her lap until her Yorkie, Spike, jumped on her and made her realize she had something left to live for. The book told the story behind the jokes. It showed how Joan turned pain into punchlines. Her will, filed in December 2014, listed a $150 million estate. Melissa got most of it, including a $35 million Manhattan apartment. Her grandson got a trust. So did her niece, nephew, and 5 staff members. Joan donated to God's Love We Deliver, Guide Dogs for the Blind, the Simon Wiesenthal Center, and others. Even in death, she gave. And in May 2025, NBC aired a tribute special, Joan Rivers, a dead funny all-star tribute. Tiffany Haddish rapped about her. Nikki Glaser roasted the room in Joan's style. Rachel Brosnahan, who based her Marvelous Mrs. Maisel role on Joan, delivered 60 seconds of rapid-fire one-liners. Melissa sat front row. 11 years had passed, but the laughter still echoed.